Next, we have Diana, approval of the Highway 20 Corridor Master Plan Design Project concepts.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is approval of the Highway 20 Corridor Master Plan Design Concepts. So to give you some background, City Council has prioritized improving the Highway 20 corridor with the goal to bring new economic energy to the area. The city has previously received two $100,000 grants through the SACOG Community Design Program. The first grant was used to prepare the Highway 20 Better Street Design Guide, which that guide recommended that the city enhance landscaping, green the street by planting street trees along with other plants in the medians, create an edge and buffer between the sidewalks and vehicle travel lanes, install wayfinding signage, and manage vehicle access by consolidating driveways. The second grant helped to improve the median between Stafford Way and Clark Avenue. And I'm happy to report that we have a third $100,000 grant coming from SACOG to help us implement this project. So as the next step in the Highway 20 revitalization strategy, in December 2016, Council awarded a contract to Melton Design Group to create a landscape corridor and wayfinding signage concept plan. I want to add to this, at one point we had prepared a grant application for the competitive community design grant through SACOG. Some of the feedback that we received from Caltrans was that we actually needed to establish a master plan for the Highway 20 corridor, that we'd be more competitive if we had a cohesive plan that showed that there had been community input and that we had put some thought into what that corridor was going to look like. And so based upon that recommendation from not only the previous study, but then also Caltrans, again, we contracted with Melton Design Group to create the corridor. I'm going to skip ahead for a minute before we get into the presentation by Greg Melton, but we've already put elements of this plan into implementation. And so, for instance, I talked about the Highway 20 median. This has been constructed. Also, right now, under construction, McDonald's on Highway 20. Arnaldo, the Development Services Director, was able to take this plan and use it as a guide in terms of working with McDonald's. We're going to have landscaping in this front area, which is going to greatly improve the look of McDonald's. And then also in regard to Dutch Brothers. With the Dutch Brothers project, they're now going to have landscaping here between fronting the property. And so this is really a great guide to be able to help staff to, as projects come in, properties redevelop, to really look at this, okay, what are our opportunities to consolidate driveways? What are opportunities to improve the landscaping? Not that everything's going to be built exactly as this guide shows, but it's a great reference point for us. So with that, I would like to introduce Greg Melton with Melton Design Group, and he's going to give us a presentation on the plan.
Great, thank you, Diana. Good evening, Greg Melton. And I guess what I want to say is thank you. This has been a real fun project creating this image. Obviously, your brand here in front of you someone did a lot of work really capturing Yuba City. And so we use that and others to really try to capture some of the different locations in the gateway for the arrival into town. So with that, we'll just kind of roll through the plan here. You'll see this again in a minute. Boom. There we go. All right. So the corridor itself, as you can see, is just the highway from 99 to the river. And that's the study area that we're working on right now and the grants that Diana and the city's getting for the improvements. There it is. So to do this, we really wanted to identify a lot of the existing conditions, and this is primarily for the whole Highway 20 corridor with the different drive accesses to all the commercial areas. That was part of this. We wanted to look at the safety of that and where we could minimize access points to make it safer to drive and to have less access points to Highway 20. So we went through an existing conditions, and you can read that on your own spare time. It gets detailed. These identifications, photos helped us study the area, plus look at the different intersections where we saw more accidents than others, which helped us identify all the driveways, which are the green and orange dots, orange being driveways that are maybe less than desirable or overdone. So we went through the whole site there, and they've been identified. And quickly back on that real quick, we will be looking at this, and as Arnaldo and the planning and everybody has been using this right now, as new development occurs, this is when these driveways will be looked at. So not just randomly saying we're going to remove a driveway, but in addition to a use permit or a zone change. So diving into the design approach, there are a lot of opportunities we have. There really is not a big arrival from the north or from the east coming into the city. So that's where this section of road focused. And we captured again, the crate and some of your other signage. And there's your water tower that is now going to get a new facelift also. So we took all this into consideration, plus some of the key elements in the Sutter Buttes, the rolling hills, the agriculture, and really tied it together into our design. We also looked at some of our public meetings. People brought up, hey, the crop duster has been a very big part of our community, the agriculture. So these are things that came from our meetings that we presented and then people elaborated on. So these are just some images. So we focused on two main gateways at the 9920 and at the 20 over the Feather River Bridge. Those are our two main focus points. And then for the wayfinding, we identified some of the main cross streets where we would be using a lot of the kiosks and other signage that unifies the whole project. Also, with the Bridge Street improvement occurring, we wanted the east-west corridors to be similar. So when you're driving east-west, the medians will be very similar in view. So initially, people aren't going to get that. But once you do realize, hey, what street am I? Oh, this must be an east-west corridor. It's got this type of landscaping, trees, lighting, etc. So a little subliminal action going on there. So here is the intersection at the 99 corridor. And this is the view you have coming from the north and looking east. The new Pollo Loco is over here, so we are not blocking any of their new signage. But we really wanted to capture the Sutter Buttes, the Tules, the ducks, and of course the signage of Yuba City along some type of agricultural landscape. So this is the theme that's developed. And with this theme, we've included that in all the corners or something like that. This is the primary sign on this intersection. So when you're coming from the north, you will see this. And then as you're coming from the south, from the east off of the bridge, this is an option we looked at is capturing the water tower, which you can't see from a lot of places in town, and bring a scaled version of that to the east side of the bridge. So when you start, hundreds and hundreds of feet back, this bridge will be visible. I mean, this tank will be visible, and we'll be able to capture your logo. We included also some wildlife steel cutouts onto the wall, onto the tower, so it had a little bit more character, and again represented the river as we are right on the river on that end. So between this and this one, those are turning your primary gateways on the north and the east. This is looking northeast at the mall site, standing in the middle of the intersection. And again, we have the rolling hills. We have some cutouts that represent the community, the branding, the identity, etc. And again, we're using a steel material with different perforations to capture this. So something very low maintenance, something that's not painted. It'll be treated in a way that long-term maintenance will not be required, so you'll have to come back on occasion, but it won't have to be repainted all the time. So we wanted to capture a material that also fit into the area. So again, duplicating the landscape, so the whole intersection would look very similar. This is the Sutter Buttes and the rolling hills looking to the northwest. And again, looking towards the gas station, the southwest. We wanted to make sure that things were still very visible, but we still used a lot of the repetitive elements. When we went to the wayfinding, obviously the Sutter Buttes are a key element in this. So with our signage, we wanted to capture similar materials, but also that same branding. So now as you go down the Highway 20 corridor, we would have this different wayfinding signage kiosks and maps at the key intersections where we'd have pedestrians, and then wanted to incorporate a monument sign for the commercial areas. In some cases, we have multiple commercials that could be handled by one sign instead of having a sign every building. So we wanted to give the commercial world and the tenants and the retailers something that they could build and put their signage on, their logos, but have an overall theme that matches the whole project. So we went through that, street signs, and then this is some signage that's kind of new to the world of wayfinding. It's actually on the pavement or on the ground. So if you're driving on Highway 80 right now, you'll see all these Highway 80, Business 80, I-5 arrows. So actually on the pavement showing up. So we had picked the proper elements we wanted to identify, downtown, Plumas Street, whatever it may be, or the emergency ones with police and fire, and identify those either on the pavement or the sidewalk. So just another approach to all that. Oops. Streetscapes, sections. We basically have two sections going up and down Highway 20. One with a narrow median and one with a wider median. The parkways on the sides are about the same throughout, but those are kind of the two sections that you'll see. In some areas we have 10 to 12 feet. In other areas we have 4. So where it's 4 feet, you're not going to see a tree. And we don't have room right now at the current lane configuration to make those wider. If something was to change in that realm, then Caltrans obviously would be making a big change in the whole street. So those are the sections. The typical hardscape, as Diana mentioned, we wanted to start creating a safety area between the road and the sidewalk. So we wanted to create parkway strips. So this is part of the whole safety of the pedestrian. So this shows parkway strips between the sidewalk and the road, and in some places where buildings abut right up against the sidewalk, we won't be able to do that. We'll have to have the sidewalk adjacent to the curb and gutter. So it doesn't happen with the safe sidewalk everywhere, but where we can, we'll incorporate it throughout. The new tree planting landscape. You've seen what's gone on in Bridge. It's going to be very similar to that going down the center median. And then we'll have a different canopy and a different tree in the parkway strips. Again, we'll be taking into consideration the retail signage, tenant signs, pruning the trees up so when you are in your vehicles, you'll be able to see under. And we know when a tree goes in the ground, you can't quite do that, but it takes a few years. And once the tree grows up a little bit, we'll be able to see under that, and the tenants will have their signs visible. There is the median that's gone in currently on Highway 20. The different trees was the Chinese pistache and the small little gem magnolia, if you were wondering. So at this point, the master plan will be, if adopted tonight, moved to a final product after a final review from the staff. And at that point, we'll have a completed master plan to go after more grant money and to implement as we needed it or as planning needs with new development as occurring at McDonald's and those other elements. So that kind of wraps up my presentation. Do you guys have any questions or want to see anything else?
Thank you. Any questions, further discussion? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I do
I
have.
guess there is a change.
When we're looking at the intersection of 99 and 20, we hope that in short 20 years,
Short period of time.
we would hope 10, that intersection would see a massive change with structure to move the vehicles in non-conflict. And so some of that gateway appearance, just in my estimation, needs to probably be reflective in value or relocation possibilities that wouldn't be astronomical to
Sure.
do that. And then and then when we look at some of the retail that's currently there, and I think it's all in lease configurations on the west side, that's all Caltrans property.
Right.
So investing in something that they may just come along and say, is gone, might be something that we need to look at. I mean, overall, the concept is great. It's just where the allocation of resources would go.
Sure, and I think this with this design, we wouldn't be losing these products. The steel isn't going to be a 50-foot single sheet of steel. It'll be broken down into manageable, constructible sites that are bolted onto footings. So in this case, if we ended up with some type of overpass and connection, these elements will be able to be uprooted, new footings put in different locations, and then replanted, as they fit into the new design. And hopefully with the new design, we can work these in.
I think with that in mind, I think the plan is probably a good move forward product for our city.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments, discussion?
Yeah, I'll make
Stan.
just a comment, basically based upon relationships with Caltrans. Some of us that have been at this a while know the intricacies and time that it takes to develop plans with a state agency. And while the community has said in the past they would like it all cleaned up on that corridor, and while we have made progress, a lot of the times Caltrans' interest was taken away by other major projects throughout the state and in the region. So finally we're able to get at a point to where we have a plan that, as far as we know, they're somewhat satisfied with the basic concepts, and that the plans will at least be able to proceed without too many problems in the next year or so, and that actually we can have the, I'm just going to say it, ugly bushes and turnouts removed finally and put into something that the citizens can say, yeah, we like that look. But it has been a challenging relationship process to get to this point. Fantastic to staff finally getting it here, and I'm looking forward to this actually being put into construction in the next few years. Thank you.
Any other comments? Diana, I just want to say thank you for working on the master plan. I think master plans are really important for the visionary of the city. And then to apply for grants, they're very pertinent to the information. So when you're applying for the grants, it obviously shows that we're not doing a hodgepodge stuff. They see a plan. So that's why the master plans are so important to get out there. So thank you for all the work put into this to help move it forward.
Yeah, there was a lot of staff involvement, so Ben,
Yeah,
Arnaldo. And then also we did have a couple of public workshops where we did get input from adjacent property owners. So it was really great to get their input, and we actually implemented some of their ideas into the plan.
Yeah,
So,
so
thank
thank you very much for that effort. Okay, do we have an approval, a motion?
I'd move to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Great, thank you.